Two towering figures stand guard over London, but their true origin is far darker than a simple parade float. Are Gog and Magog merely the last remnants of a prehistoric British race? Or are they the heralds of a biblical apocalypse? We're excavating the bone-chilling truth behind these primordial giants today. Welcome to the Conjuring Files. Today we are opening file number 59. This is not a fairy tale. This is an investigation into the deepest, darkest roots of British folklore and biblical prophecy. We are looking at two names that have echoed through history for millennia: Gog and Magog. To the casual observer, they are wooden statues in the Guildhall, harmless mascots of the City of London. But look closer. Look into their eyes. There is a rage there, a hunger. We are tracing the lineage of these entities from the mist-shrouded hills of ancient Albion to the fiery pages of the Book of Revelation. We are asking the question that historians are too afraid to ask. Were they men or were they monsters? And more importantly, are they gone? If you are ready to dig up the bones of history and face what lies beneath, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. We are about to descend into a world where myth and reality bleed together, and where the giants of old may not be as dead as we think. Let's begin. This is not a fairy tale. This is an investigation into the deepest, darkest roots of British folklore and biblical prophecy. We are looking at two names that have echoed through history for millennia: Gog and Magog. To the casual observer, they are wooden statues in the Guildhall, harmless mascots of the City of London. But look closer. Look into their eyes. There is a rage there, a hunger. We are tracing the lineage of these entities from the mist-shrouded hills of ancient Albion to the fiery pages of the Book of Revelation. We are asking the question that historians are too afraid to ask. Were they men or were they monsters? And more importantly, are they gone? If you are ready to dig up the bones of history and face what lies beneath, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. We are about to descend into a world where myth and reality bleed together, and where the giants of old may not be as dead as we think. Let's begin. Stand before the Guildhall in London. Look up. Two colossal figures loom over the entrance. They are carved from wood, painted in garish colors, holding clubs and shields. Tourists take pictures. Children laugh. But if you strip away the centuries of varnish and the comforting narrative of civic pride, you see something else. You see captives. You see defeated enemies. These are Gog and Magog. And according to legend, they were the last of the giants. The story begins with Brutus of Troy. Yes, that Brutus, the legendary founder of Britain. After the fall of Troy, Brutus wandered the seas, guided by the goddess Diana, until he landed on an island called Albion. But Albion was not empty. It was inhabited by a race of giants, savage, brutal, and immense. They lived in caves and crags, feeding on raw flesh and ruling the land with iron fists. Among them were Gog and Magog, the leaders, the strongest, the most terrifying. Brutus did not come to negotiate. He came to conquer. The battle was not a skirmish. It was a slaughter. The giants, despite their size and strength, were no match for the organized military might of the Trojans. One by one, they fell. Their bones cracked under the weight of Roman-style discipline. Gog and Magog were the last to stand. They fought with the fury of doomed gods, tearing trees from the earth to use as weapons, roaring challenges that shook the ground. But they were captured, bound in chains, dragged back to the new city of Troia Nova, later known as London. Why keep them alive? Why not kill them? Because Brutus wanted a symbol. He wanted to show the world that he had tamed the wild, chaotic forces of the island. He chained Gog and Magog to the gates of his palace. They became guardians, not by choice, but by force. They were forced to watch the rise of the civilization that had destroyed their kind. For years they stood there, rotting in their chains, their eyes burning with hatred. When they finally died, their legacy did not. Effigies were made, statues were carved. They became part of the city's identity. But let us reevaluate this. Why would a civilized city adopt the images of its sworn enemies as protectors? It is a psychological paradox. It suggests that the power of the giants was not just physical, but spiritual. The people of London feared them, and in fear, there is reverence. By placing them at the gate, they were not just mocking them, they were containing them. They were saying, "Here lies the chaos, here lies the wild, we have bound it." But binding is not destroying. the energy remains. The anger remains. Consider the original statues. They were destroyed in the Great Fire of London in 1666, burned, ashes. But they were replaced, again and again. The current statues date from 1953, but they are copies of copies. The form persists, the image persists. Why? Because the city needs them. The modern mind dismisses them as folklore, but the subconscious knows better. The Guildhall is the heart of financial power in London. It is a place of order, of law, of money. And guarding it are the symbols of primal chaos. It is a balancing act, order and chaos, civilization and savagery. But there is a darker interpretation. What if they are not prisoners? What if they are watchers? In many ancient traditions, the defeated gods do not die. They wait. They bide their time. The chains are symbolic. The wood is just wood. The spirit of Gog and Magog is embedded in the stone of the city. Every time a statue is replaced, the ritual is renewed. The pact is reaffirmed. We honor them so they do not rise again. Or perhaps we honor them because we know they will. The legend says they were the last, but a last is a dangerous word. It implies an end. But in mythology, endings are often beginnings. The defeat of the giants was not the end of their line. It was the beginning of their myth. And myths have power. They shape reality. As we walk through the streets of London, we walk over the graves of these titans. We build our skyscrapers on their bones, and sometimes in the quiet of the night, when the fog rolls in from the Thames, you can almost hear them breathing. Not the breath of wood and paint, but the breath of something ancient, something angry, something waiting. Stay with us, because the story does not end in London. It ends in the apocalypse. To understand the true nature of Gog and Magog, we must leave the shores of Britain and travel to the deserts of the Middle East. We must open the Bible. Here, the names change meaning. They are no longer just giants. They are nations. They are forces. They are the enemies of God. In the book of Ezekiel, Gog is described as the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal. He comes from the north. He brings with him a vast army. Magog is his land, his people. They are depicted as a horde, a swarm of locusts descending upon the peaceful lands of Israel. This is not a battle of heroes. It is a catastrophe. It is the end of days. Ezekiel prophesies that Gog will be defeated not by swords, but by divine intervention. Earthquakes, fire, brimstone, the mountains will shake. The fish will tremble, the birds will flee. It is a scene of cosmic destruction. Then, in the book of Revelation, the imagery intensifies. Gog and Magog are mentioned again in chapter 20. After the 1,000-year reign of Christ, Satan is released. He gathers the nations for battle. Gog and Magog are named explicitly. They surround the camp of the saints, but fire comes down from heaven and devours them. They are thrown into the lake of fire. This is the final judgment. The ultimate defeat of evil. Trace the linguistic shift. How did the British giants become the biblical villains? It is a mystery that has puzzled scholars for centuries. Some say it is a coincidence of names, others say it is a deliberate conflation. The early Christian monks who wrote the histories of Britain were well versed in the Bible. When they heard the stories of the giant inhabitants of Albion, they saw a parallel. The giants were the other, the pagans, the enemies of the true faith. By naming them Gog and Magog, they were not just telling a local story. They were placing Britain within the grand narrative of salvation history. They were saying, even here in this remote island, the battle between good and evil was fought. But this transformation had a profound effect. It stripped the giants of their humanity. They were no longer just a prehistoric race. They became demons. They became metaphysical forces of evil. This is why the fear of them persists. You can fight a man, you can kill a giant, but how do you kill a demon? How do you kill a prophecy? Explore the prophetic role of these figures in modern theological discourse. Today, many evangelicals and theologians look at the news and see Gog and Magog rising. They look at Russia. They look at Turkey. They look at the alliances forming in the Middle East. They see the North gathering. The fear is real. The anticipation is palpable. For millions of people, Gog and Magog are not myths. They are future events. They are the ticking clock of the apocalypse. How did the identity of these figures morph from physical flesh and blood titans into metaphysical demonic forces? It happened through the lens of fear. The unknown is terrifying. The other is terrifying. By labeling the enemy as Gog and Magog, you dehumanize them. You make them monstrous. You justify their destruction. It is a powerful psychological tool. It was used in ancient times, and it is used today. But there is a deeper layer. In the Enochian tradition, the giants were not just big humans. They were the Nephilim, the offspring of the Watchers, fallen angels, and human women. They were hybrids, abominations. This connects the British legend to the biblical narrative in a terrifying way. If Gog and Magog were Nephilim, then they were not just enemies of Brutus. They were enemies of God. Their blood was cursed. Their existence was a violation of natural law. This explains the violence of their defeat. It explains the need to erase them. It explains why their memory is both preserved and suppressed. They are the scar on the face of history, a reminder of the time when the boundaries between heaven and earth were broken, when monsters walked the land. And if the boundary was broken once, can it be broken again? The prophecy says yes. The fire will fall, the earth will shake, and Gog and Magog will rise, not as wood and paint, but as flesh and blood, or worse, as spirit and shadow. The transition from Albion to the apocalypse is not just a change of location. It is a change of nature. They have evolved, they have adapted, and they are waiting for the signal. We live in an age of science, of satellites, of DNA sequencing. We live in an age of science, of satellites, of DNA sequencing. We think we have mapped every corner of the Earth. We think we have explained every mystery. But the Earth keeps its secrets. And in 2026, new geological surveys in the UK have begun to whisper a disturbing truth. Examining recent data from deep Earth scans in remote parts of Britain, archaeologists have found anomalies, unexplained voids, massive skeletal structures buried deep beneath the peat and stone. These are not dinosaur bones. The shape is wrong. The proportions are human, but scaled up. Femurs that are 6 feet long. Skulls that could hold a basketball. The scientific community is hesitant. They call them pathological deformities. They call them hoaxes. But the data is there. The shadows are on the screen. Comparing global giant myths to the Enochian tradition of the Watchers reveals a pattern. From the Americas to Asia, from Africa to Europe, every culture has stories of giants, not just big men, but monsters. From the Americas to Asia, from Africa to Europe, every culture has stories of giants. Not just big men, but monsters. From the Americas to Asia, from Africa to Europe, every culture has stories of giants. Not just big men, but monsters. The Cyclops, the Titans, the Oni, the Nephilim. Is it possible that these are not just stories? Is it possible that they are memories, genetic memories encoded in our DNA, warning us of a time when we were not alone at the top of the food chain? Analyzing the crossover between ancient megalithic sites and the purported locations of giant burials is chilling. Stonehenge, Avebury, the mounds of Ireland. These places are often associated with giants in folklore. The locals say the giants built them, or that the giants are buried beneath them. Modern archaeology often dismisses this as superstition. But what if the superstition is based on fact? What if the megaliths were not just temples but tombs, containment units, prisons for the dead? The Nephilim connection is the key. In the Book of Enoch, the Watchers taught humans forbidden knowledge. They corrupted the bloodline. The flood was sent to cleanse the earth of this corruption, but the flood did not get them all. Some survived, some hid, some went underground. The legends of hollow earth, of subterranean races, may not be fantasy. They may be history. If Gog and Magog were Nephilim, then their remains are not just bones. They are radioactive with spiritual toxicity. They are anchors for dark energy. This explains the hauntings, the bad luck, the feeling of dread that surrounds these ancient sites. It is not just imagination, it is resonance, the echo of a violent, unnatural death. Recent excavations in the Caucasus, in the Middle East, and even in the UK have been shut down abruptly. Official reasons are given. Funding cuts, safety concerns. But rumors persist. Whispers of things found that cannot be explained. Bones that do not decay. Artifacts that hum with energy. The cover-up is part of the mystery. Why hide the truth? Because the truth is terrifying. Because the truth challenges our understanding of ourselves. If giants existed, then we are not the pinnacle of creation. We are the survivors, the runts, the ones who hid while the titans fell. And if they are still here, buried deep, waiting, what happens when they wake? The surveys are continuing. The drills are going deeper. And something is listening. Something is waking up. The Nephilim connection is not just academic, it is existential. It threatens the very foundation of our reality. And something is listening, something is waking up. The Nephilim connection is not just academic, it is existential. It threatens the very foundation of our reality.
It's happening again.
Travel east, to the Caucasus Mountains, to the Derbent Pass. Here, legend says, Alexander the Great built a great wall, the Iron Gates. He did not build it to keep out armies, he built it to keep in monsters. The unclean nations, Gog and Magog. Investigating the legend of Alexander, we find a consistent thread. He encountered a people who were savage, who ate filth, who were led by two kings, Gog and Magog. He trapped them behind a wall of iron and brass sealed with bitumen. He declared that they would remain there until the end of time, until the apocalypse. Mapping the physical locations in the Caucasus Mountains often linked to the containment of Gog and Magog reveals strange anomalies. The terrain is rugged, hostile. The passes are narrow. It is a natural fortress. But there are ruins, ancient walls, fortifications that predate known history. Who built them, and what were they keeping in or keeping out? The symbolic meaning of the opening of the gates in contemporary geopolitical and supernatural theories is profound. Today, the region is unstable. Conflicts rage, borders shift. The Iron Gates are no longer physical barriers. They are political lines, and they are fraying. Many theorists believe that the release of Gog and Magog is not just a spiritual event, but a political one. The alignment of nations, the breaking of treaties, the opening of the path from the north. But there is a supernatural layer. The gates are not just metal, they are spiritual seals. And seals can be broken, rituals can be performed, blood can be spilled. The legend says that when the time is right, the gates will open, not by force, but by decree. By divine permission, the restraint will be lifted, and the horde will pour out. Consider the psychological impact of this legend. For centuries, the people of the region have lived in the shadow of the gates. They have told stories of the noises from behind the wall, the scratching, the moaning, the voices. Is it wind, or is it something else? The fear is ingrained, it is cultural, it is real. In contemporary supernatural theories, the Iron Gates are seen as a weak point in the fabric of reality, a place where the veil is thin, where the demonic can bleed into the physical. Many exorcists and paranormal investigators are drawn to this region. They sense the darkness, they feel the pressure. The gates are holding, but for how long? The hidden history of the Iron Gates is a history of containment, of holding back the tide. But tides always turn, walls always fall. And when the Iron Gates open, the world will not be ready. The horde will not be an army of men. It will be an army of nightmares, and Gog and Magog will lead them. Why does the fascination with ancient giants persist? In an era of satellite mapping and digital transparency, why do we still look for monsters? Because the map is not the territory. The screen is not the world. There are still shadows, still corners, still mysteries that science cannot touch. Summarizing the journey, we see that Gog and Magog are more than statues, more than names. They are symbols of the unknown, of the chaos that lurks beneath the order of civilization. They are the return of the repressed, the things we try to forget. The psychological impact of realizing our ancestors lived in a world they believed was shared with non-human entities is profound. It changes how we see ourselves. We are not alone. We never were. We are part of a larger, darker ecosystem, and that ecosystem is waking up. Final reflections on whether Gog and Magog are historical ghosts or a looming shadow of the future. Perhaps they are both. Perhaps the past and the future are connected. Perhaps the giants are waiting for us to remember them, to acknowledge them, to fear them. As we close file NER 58, look at the statues in London. Look at the maps of the Caucasus. Look at the skies. The signs are there. The whispers are getting louder. The gates are creaking, and the giants are stirring. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the abyss. If you want to continue exploring the dark corners of history and the paranormal, please like this video, share it with someone who needs to know the truth, and subscribe to the Conjuring Files. Hit the bell icon so you never miss a file. The truth is in the files. Do not look away. The giants are watching.